Hello and welcome to episode 301 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDad FF. Still just sounds crazy to say 301. Now that we're in that next 300s. You know, I was going to make a 300 reference, but the dad jokes aren't quite flowing the way they should be because I'm so focused on Dynasty Buys. You know, we put the buys out. You guys were so active in the chat talking about wide receiver buys. Snoog and I didn't even get a chance to talk about wide receivers or running backs. So now we're like, all right, Snoog loves the running backs. I love the running backs. And this landscape is evolving so much right now. We're going to tell you who to buy, who to avoid. Let's get it going, Snoog.
Yeah, all I need to do is get the text that Snoog we're doing running back buys tomorrow at this time. I'll be there. I'll be there excited. I'll have all my notes down. I'll have all my players ready to go. So I'm excited. Running back's a position that I love most. And we're at a point in time where the running backs are about to be the best they've been in a long time. Like I'm getting like that vintage 2017, 2018 vibes when it's like Gurley, Zeke, Kamara, Dalvin Cook, CMC. So let's jump back into this one. I'm excited. Nasty rookie class coming in with the running back position. And now we got a bunch of guys that just got some coaching upgrades. Let's jump right into it, Dad. You kick us off with the first guy.
Yeah, Snoog straight up like when you go to text that gift when your girl's like, hey, you coming over? It's that one of Forrest Gump like running down through the streets trying to go. That's how Snoog is when you talk running backs. This is a fun time with running backs because Snoog from last year's class, and I know we're going to do a mock here, I can rattle off 10 names easily that I would prefer over the running back one last year.
Yeah.
And then I have another group of like, there's at least 15 guys in this class where I'm like, you know what? Outside that top tier in 2024, they would, yeah, exactly. They would be top five in last year's class. And that's going to change everything. So I don't want to buy running backs that are in situations where you're like, oh, yeah, no, they did all right last year. All right isn't going to cut it in today's NFL. The new landscape of running backs, I want elite players. I want players that are going to take care of business. I want those guys that are going to be your Breece Halls. Okay, Breece Hall was the RB2 in 2023 with Zach Wilson at quarterback. We need someone to dump him the ball because Aaron Rodgers was not targeting him. Aaron Rodgers was not getting him involved in the passing game. Breece Hall right now is being valued as the 105 to 106 in Superflex drafts. He is better than any running back in this class outside Ashton Junty. You could argue he's equally talented as Ashton Junty. Like if they're on that same wavelength, and as much as I love Travion Henderson and I love Omarion Hampton and I love Caleb Johnson, Breece Hall, we've already seen it. Breece Hall is an elite level running back who I think if they get the right system in place, we've talked about this with the Jets. The Jets are a dumpster fire, but Breece Hall is that shining light coming out of the dumpster fire. I think there's a real opportunity here to buy low on Breece Hall and get yourself into that championship realm. And they're not going to draft another running back because they have Braylon Allen already in place. They have two solid running backs. And that's something we're going to talk about multiple times throughout the show. Snoog, we pulled up Dynasty Data Lab again. Hit me up with some Breece Hall trades just to think like, would you buy these guys? Because Breece Hall to me is still in that top tier in my head. Value-wise, it still Gibbs, Bijan by themselves, Saquon, Junty, and then you talk about Breece Hall maybe as the RB5, maybe RB6 with A-Chain. But, man, I think we have an opportunity to buy here like we haven't had in years.
Yeah, I love this one here. First off, kicking it right off. Breece Hall or DK and David Montgomery? Smash or pass? You taking Breece?
I'm taking Breece there. I mean, I think Metcalf's fine. David Montgomery's fine. You're looking at both of these guys. Metcalf's probably worth the 110. And Montgomery's probably worth an early second. But I think Breece Hall, by the time the season's over, could be worth a 101 plus in 2026. And right now, I'm smashing Breece Hall there in that scenario.
This one's ridiculous. What about Breece Hall and Kirk Cousins or Michael Penix, a fourth and a second?
The Michael Penix hype has to stop. Like, I like him, right? Like, but his ceiling is Tua light. Not Tua plus. It's Tua light because he doesn't have the same accuracy. We're saying, and I'm seeing it in the sports card industry as well, is like people, just like when we saw, like people wanting to invest in Mac Jones and invest. He's better than that. But like we're taking
he's
all
literally
of
like a Mac Jones.
But we're investing in that same way where we're just like, okay, he had 4 games he started and he was good in one of them. So why don't I trade Breece Hall for him? That's fine. Buy quarterbacks cheaper. Get Matthew Stafford in that scenario. Don't buy Penix.
I like this one here. Last one we'll do. Jahmyr Gibbs in a second or Trey McBride and Breece Hall. You're getting an elite cornerstone tight end asset to tier off of Gibbs, our RB1 to like our RB3 or 4 and Breece Hall. I'm smashing that Breece Hall side there. And I'm like, you won't find a bigger Gibbs truther than me out there. Like, if you do, it's probably Jahmyr Gibbs' mother. Like,
Jahmyr Gibbs' mom. We'll see if we can get her on the show. But I think you're right. And everyone is trying to buy Brock Bowers still. I'm going to just say it. You can't. You just can't. All right. It's not going to happen. The closest thing you can get to that, though, is Trey McBride. Trey McBride was top 5 in volume, top 5 in receptions, top 5 in targets, top 5 in yards. Just get him. Trey McBride is your discount Brock Bowers, and he's going to put up crazy numbers. I'm all for that. Give me as much Trey McBride as possible and Breece Hall. So I'm smashing Breece Hall. Who's your number one running back buy right now? You know, like I want to start up towards the tier of like, you know, who's that guy that Snoog's out actively going out there and making offers every single day?
I'm going to go with a guy that just got a massive coaching upgrade at offensive coordinator, a guy that turned around the Saints and Clint Kubiak coming to the Seattle Seahawks. It's Kenneth Walker. This is a guy that we saw the upside when he was healthy last year. 19, 33, 15, 20, 23, 21 fantasy points per game before injury. He had like 7, 8 touchdowns in like literally 5, 6 games. The upside is the moon with Kenneth Walker. And the reason why I'm buying him, even with a stacked running back class coming in, they've already invested so much into their running backs. They have their guys in Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. And I think Clint Kubiak's a guy that loves to pound the rock, has a dynamic offensive mindset to get their best players in space. Kamara was phenomenal with the Saints last year, coming off a season where he was kind of inefficient as a runner. And then last year was one of the most efficient running seasons he's ever had with the offensive line healthy. And I mean, the Saints just always seem to have a million injuries, no offensive weapons outside of Kamara every single year. But when the team was healthy, looked great, looked awesome, efficient runners. I think Kenneth Walker is going to fit that mold perfectly, get him in space, get him downhill. The best thing about him, too, is everyone tries to say he's not a pass catcher. He had 46 receptions in 11 games. He was pacing out to have like 70, 80 receptions. We were honestly robbed of a top 3 to 5 Kenneth Walker season last year, and I don't think anybody realizes it because, 1, the offensive line was terrible. 2, the coaching staff was inconsistent in the play calling. 3, he was battling like calf injury and an abdominal injury all season. So that's one of the things that I think Kenneth Walker is just a guy that I'm buying into. I'm buying into the upside. Let's pull up some Dynasty Data Lab trades for Kenneth Walker because I'm looking at these and they are absolutely like horrific. Like he's a guy actually having a decent amount of spots. Let's pull it up here because like the first one right off the bat.
So like for me, I'm looking at DK Metcalf and Demario Douglas or Walker and Coop. Yeah, like that's a smash. Other one here, I'm looking at Ramondre Stevenson in a second for Kenneth Walker.
Paying that. Yep.
You know, I think you've created a scenario because I like Zach Charbonnet, and I think Zach Charbonnet has been more
a good player.
When it's just one of them, he's been more productive. But I think we're going to look at a new system here in Seattle. I think we're going to have Kenneth Walker as the guy. I don't have a lot of shares, but you always seem to sell me on him. But I'm looking at these trades. I mean, Jalen McMillan or Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, it's Kenneth Walker by a mile. Kenneth Walker a third or a pair of seconds. Like these are the type of things that I would pay all day long for that upside.
How about Kenneth Walker and BTJ or Garrett Wilson, Josh Jacobs, and Jaden Reed?
I'm taking Kenneth Walker and BTJ there.
Yeah. Man, that's tough. That's tough. I love Josh Jacobs. And we're going to get to him. We're going to get to him in a little bit. Kenneth Walker, neither do I. Kenneth Walker or a random 26 first.
I'm taking Kenneth Walker there too. That's like the most I'd pay. It's just a random first, though.
Just to segue into your next move, you know, like Travis Etienne and a second or Kenneth Walker.
That one's close, but I'm still going to go Kenneth Walker there just because they still have the same head coach that was believing in Kenneth Walker last year. There's a lot changing in Jacksonville, but I really think from a talent perspective, they're both up there with some of the better running backs in the NFL, Travis Etienne and Kenneth Walker. And It's crazy because the running back position could chew you up and spit you out. If you're injured and you're battling through hamstring injuries and trying to play the position, you're not going to play at a high level. And especially if there's like a Tank Bigsby or a Zach Charbonnet that's healthy behind you, outshining you because you're injured. People don't see it. The casual fan can't understand like how to break down that type of situation. So that's why we get these buying windows and these opportunities, and that's why we cash out. So sell us on your next guy here, Dad.
Kenneth Walker is current ADP is RB13 at pick 63, smashed in between 5 wide receivers. Would you rather any of these wide receivers over Kenneth Walker? Zay Flowers, Chris Olave, Jordan Addison, DJ Moore, Xavier Worthy.
Wow. Yeah, he's honestly just such a good buy right now. I really think so, because like if he hits his ceiling, Dad, he has top 5 upside. The issue was before we always knew he was a dynamic rusher and an explosive guy, but could he catch passes? He proved last year that he's a very capable and a very good pass catcher, because to be a good pass catcher, you have to be able to do something in space. Like everyone tries to say Charbonnet's a better pass catcher. Like this guy can catch pass. Like no, catching a swing route and getting tackled immediately and not being able to make people miss and not be able to extend the play is not a pass catcher. We need people that are dynamic, can make moves, and can take a 3-yard screen pass and turn it into a 60-yard touchdown. That's what Kenneth Walker can do. Zach Charbonnet never had that in his bag and never will. That's why Kenneth Walker should be the pass catcher there. I think Clint Kubiak's going to see that.
So my next guy, and this was someone that I absolutely loved coming out. I got tons of them in my rookie draft. And then when the Panthers went ahead and drafted Jonathan Brooks, instead of drafting a bunch of Jonathan Brooks, I was trading for Chuba Hubbard on the cheap. And then when Jonathan Brooks became, and this is why I'm trying to share, these are buy windows. Then Jonathan Brooks comes off of IR, and you know what? Chuba Hubbard says, the hell with you, I'm going ham, right? So like Jonathan Brooks comes off of IR, and after that, Chuba Hubbard goes RB10, RB2, RB12, RB8, RB2. Like he just was like, give me the ball. Like this is going to be it. And now, just like we were talking about in those other situations, they invested a very high pick in Jonathan Brooks. They think Jonathan Brooks could be the running back of the future, but then they went out and they said, you know what? Chuba Hubbard's too good to let go. So now Chuba Hubbard at 25 years old has a contract in an ascending offense, because I think Dave Canales really utilized, Chuba Hubbard. And I think David Canales is really taking Bryce Young to the next level. And you saw what he was able to do down the stretch, and he was phenomenal. Like he was, if this offense gets better, I mean, he had 9 rushing touchdowns. I think that number could go up. Receptions down the stretch wasn't quite as much, but he had 9 games over 4 receptions. So that's what you're looking for. And right now, Chuba Hubbard, most people are saying, you know what? Chuba's worth, somewhere in the second. He's not anymore. Chuba's worth the 112. I'll pay a late first for Chuba Hubbard. I'll pay a random 26 first for Chuba Hubbard if I know that it has a chance to be on that later side. I think he's going to be the perfect insulated trade if you want to pull up some trades here. But I think if I am up there with Christian McCaffrey, who worries the hell out of me, like we're talking about buying Christian McCaffrey, but I think you could get Christian McCaffrey and you throw in a veteran type Adam Thielen, and you could get Chuba Hubbard in the first. I want to do those kind of moves all day long. I think Chuba is going to have a fantastic 2025, just like he did in 2024. So look at some of these trades, throw them my way. Let's break it down.
Yeah. Before Chuba Hubbard paced 1,400 plus yards. He had 10 touchdowns, 40-something plus receptions, paced 50 plus, hit the minimum threshold. So he's a guy you're looking for in that workhorse role. And like Dad said, I'm investing in guys right now that are doomed, or I deem to be safe from this running back class. He
deemed or doomed. That's our next show.
He's deemed to be safe because they just used an early second on Brooks. They have so many other positions. The promise of Bryce Young, the offensive line's great. They're going to bring in a Ted McMillan or a stud wideout. Good things are coming to Carolina, and Chuba Hubbard's the main guy there. So, Dad, Chuba Hubbard or Tank Bigsby and Ramondre Stevenson.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
what? And I think you can get that after Cohen broke out his Duval and then said he's going to get 20 carries for Etienne. He's going to get 20 carries for Tank Bigsby. I'm like, how many carries do you think are going to go around in this offense?
Yeah.
Sell Tank Bigsby. Give me Chuba there all day long.
What about J.K. Dobbins in a 27 second or Chuba Hubbard. That's another smash.
It's a smash because J.K. Dobbins was on a yards per carry very, very good. I think he was someone that, but this is a complete ambiguous situation is J.K. Dobbins was on a prove it type deal and he got hurt in the season. So I think I'm replacing J.K. Dobbins. I think the Chargers are going to replace J.K. Dobbins and relegate him to the 1B role for another running back. I think the Chargers take a running back in round 2 and you're sitting there just begging that you had Chuba Hubbard instead.
What about Chuba Hubbard in a third or Jaden Reed in a second?
Oh, I don't like Jaden Reed. Why?
I don't need Chuba 10 times out of 10.
The value, if that's like an early second, still leans with Reed, but I want Chuba because this is what we say is I don't want any wide receivers that are in that 35 plus range in rankings that aren't a veteran. Jaden Reed does not belong on any of my teams. I don't own him. I drafted him. I traded him at peak value, and I got, I added to get to Puka and other deals I added to get up to Breece Hall. But Jaden Reed, you won't find him on my rosters because I'm going to trade him. I don't want that kind of production on my team. I don't want a guy that's going to put up 4 1 week, 12 the next, and then randomly a 25. It just doesn't work for me. And it's not best ball, so I'm not doing it. Love that. Yep. Who's your next guy here? We kind of alluded to him already. It's Tank Bigsby, right? You're going to buy as many Bigsby shares as possible?
No, it's not Tank Bigsby. I have another guy that I was going to say here, but we'll do Travis Etienne. He was my next guy after this guy, but Travis Etienne's a guy that is coming off a season that was very underperforming compared to what he did last year. He was the workhorse guy there in Jacksonville in 2023, 1,000+ yards, top 3 finish, 17+ points per game, caught 50+ passes, dynamic runner, explosive in the passing game. That's the talent he is. And I don't think Jacksonville's ever been able to truly help him hit his ceiling because they tried to use him like a guy that you bang between the tackles and that's it. That's not the type of player he is. He's a guy that you use out in space. You get him on the perimeter. You use him in outside zones, counter plays, let him hit the home run. Fully healthy Travis Etienne is one of the better running backs in the NFL. You can get him for seconds. Pennies on the dollar right now. They just brought in Liam Cohen, who's a very good offensive-minded coach. Trevor Lawrence will be healthy again. He literally said in his interview, I'll go to sleep at night when I know that I got Brian Thomas Jr., 10+ targets, Travis Etienne, 20+ carries, and Tank Bigsby the football as well. Like he knows his playmakers. He knows who the better players are right now. Tank Bigsby's still going to have a role. He's going to be a guy that gets 8 to 10 touches. He's going to be a guy that gets probably the early down, first down carry, up the middle. That's the type of player he is. But Travis Etienne has a dynamic part in his game. And if we just jump into the trades here, Dad, like shoot away. Ask me some of these trades because I'm going to throw up at how cheap he is right now.
Travis Etienne in a third or Christian Kirk, Rashid Shaheed at a 26-4.
Travis Etienne by a mile. By a mile.
Etienne or a mid-26 second?
I'm taking Etienne over that. I see Etienne in 25 second. Etienne or a 25 second and a 25 third twice on here. I'm taking Etienne. I'd pay about 2. I think I'd overpay and pay 2 seconds. But you don't have to. Like, you don't have to. I would give 2 seconds.
I don't think you have to. I've been telling people that in the Discord of like 2 seconds, you get a third back. What's the earliest you would trade in 2025 draft capital? Like
203, 204.
I say 204 because I want a shot at Scatabo and Neal.
Yeah.
Because the other part of this Jaguar situation is, right, it's a new coach. So I think new coaching staff, they didn't draft any of these guys. He's already started out saying Etienne is the guy, and he wants to get him the ball because he understands that. But maybe they replace Bigsby. Exactly. Yeah. He's the Bucky. And then we're going to see, I think we're going to have multiple backs here. So I think you're going to see a lot of similar type situations. I mean, Etienne or Khalil Shakir. As much as I love Khalil Shakir, the upside there is with Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne and a 27 first or a late 25 first. That's what you do.
Dang, that's a cowbell. What you do. Bring it out. That's like a cowbell. That's a cowbell.
You get that going. Like that's 27 class. And we talked about it with Trevor on the last show. He goes, hey, Dad, a 27 or 26 first. It's the year that you're on. But damn, if I can get a 27 first and Etienne, now I get the production and then I get that. It's a no-brainer for me all day. And we put out there who our buys are for the wide receivers. The running backs become a little bit more difficult. You get back into the guys. I mean, we've listed a couple here that are towards the top. I'm still buying the veterans. Okay. And this is where everybody just be patient. Okay. James Conner, Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, Joe. We're getting there. You weren't buying him last year either. You know what I mean? Like he produced, that's for sure. These are the guys where you're talking, even Derrick Henry's gotten a little bit cheaper. Every single one of these running backs that we liked last year, David Montgomery has gotten cheaper. And guess what? There's no way the Lions are going to replace David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. It's a nice, safe floor. You know, it's someone that you know what you're going to get. Alvin Kamara, I think they could draft somebody because Kendre Miller really just they're not big on Kendre Miller. They could draft somebody else, but Alvin Kamara is not going anywhere because he's Alvin Kamara. You know, like I think we get into a lot of opportunities where, yeah, do I want a Brian Robinson? No, I'm going to sell him because I think that the Commanders are going to draft someone. You know, Tony Pollard, semi-safe. Who are those guys that are a little bit, you know, those veterans that have depreciated in value, and how you're going about getting them? Because right now, if you're trying to sell them, just don't. Everyone's doing that right now. They're like, Dad, what can I get for Kamara? Nowhere near what you can get in September. Like, it's just not the time.
Yeah, Kamara is definitely the guy always. Everyone always undervalues him, and he's been an RB1 his entire NFL career in fantasy football as well. Just paced 1,000+ yards. He literally had a career year in terms of rushing, and he was going to have – he literally would have probably finished RB2 or RB3 this year with 300+ points. That's what he paced out to. Elite player, cheap, probably get him for like a mid to early second. A guy that
these are bad. Russell Wilson for Kamara straight up. Alvin Kamara.
That's the stuff I'm saying. Yeah, people
Benson
just don't know
straight up.
People
Late 20. No, it's Kamara for a second and 2/5.
Yeah,
Kamara and Connor. Yeah, like these.
Yeah. So he's obviously one. He always is. The main guy. I'm going to say two guys, but the main guy that I have on my list is Christian McCaffrey, because as you can tell with Kenneth Walker, Etienne, Kamara, the common trend here is I'm chasing elite upside. I want league winners. Christian McCaffrey has that. Back-to-back 20+ point seasons in San Fran, had the injury last year, but this is a guy that has 60 to 70 reception floor, 10+ touchdowns any given year when he's healthy, 1,200+ rushing yards. He's the best player we've seen in fantasy football at the running back position in a while. He's had multiple 400+ point seasons, multiple 300+ point seasons. He's had 24+ points per game in 4 out of 7 seasons. This is a guy that you're chasing for the upside. He didn't tear his ACL. He didn't tear his Achilles. He didn't break a leg in half. He had some tendonitis and some issues. Yes, I agree. That's definitely concerning. But let's just pull up a couple of Christian McCaffrey trades real quick, and this is why I'm buying him. Like, this is ridiculous. For the type of player he is and the upside he has, want to add in the Data Lab screenshots real quick. Like, right away, Christian McCaffrey in a second for a random first. Like, if that's mid to late and I can get CMC in a mid to late second to move back 10 spots, I'm doing that. Christian McCaffrey in a third or Xavier Worthy. I'm taking McCaffrey there. I'm chasing upside. I'm chasing that trophy at the end of the season. Christian McCaffrey in a second or a first. Like, that's probably what his value is going to be. I've seen him get traded in 2 of my leagues. I saw him go for the 110. I saw him go for the 112 in a random 27 second. Comfortable paying both of those. I'm not giving the 105. I'm not giving the 106. I'm not giving the 107. Once I get to that 110 to 112 range, I'm taking that pick and I'm saying, what can I turn this into to win me my league? Christian McCaffrey is probably the only player that you can take a first that late and win your league with. That's why I'm buying Christian McCaffrey. I don't need to sell anybody else.
Christian McCaffrey is the only guy when we're talking about draft startup versus trade that's such a huge discrepancy. If I'm drafting, I'm sorry, I'm not touching Alvin Kamara. I'm not touching Christian McCaffrey in the 4th round when I can get Alvin Kamara in the 9th. Like, exactly. I'm not paying there. But if he's the final piece of the puzzle,
contract extensions too. They both got 2-year extensions. They're the guys there. Like, they're gonna add people, yes, but they'll be the guys until the wheels fall off. And I don't see it happening anytime soon.
And I think you just get great value if you're trading a pick. Anything after the 108, I think you're starting to get there. And I think it's only going to go down, right? I mean, San Francisco doesn't have a capable RB2. If they do, it's Isaac Guerrero because Jordan Mason's likely going to walk in free agency. Maybe they draft a guy in the 4th round, late 3rd round. I think they have other needs. And when they draft another guy, then let everybody on Twitter talk about how Christian McCaffrey, that's their heir apparent, and they're going to move off of him. Then get him even cheaper. Like if you're the 111, 112, and you were in the championship game and you can add Christian McCaffrey for that, I was doing it everywhere in my contending teams that lost in the playoffs. I was trading for him, getting him everywhere I could because the value is just, it's too good. It's too good, and I'm looking at a guy in the similar range who I would prefer 1-to-1 just because of the age and the lack of injury and the way that he played down the stretch. And Josh Jacobs is too cheap. Josh Jacobs, really, people act like the profile is absolutely elite. Like Josh Jacobs has been someone where we've just been like, well, he doesn't get it done as the workhorse, or he doesn't catch passes, or he doesn't do this. Yeah. From the bye week on, week 11, RB5, RB2, RB5, RB4, RB6, RB12. Are you kidding me? Touchdowns. He went out and he had 12 touchdowns in the final 7 weeks. He was that offense. He was absolutely elite. And Josh Jacobs isn't valued that right now. He's valued at the RB9, right in that same area as Christian McCaffrey. And I would argue he's younger, he's cheaper, and we just saw an absolute ceiling of a boss. You know what I mean? Like that final 7 weeks, he showed what he could have done if the Raiders didn't suck. What he could have done if the Packers weren't trying to pass the ball with Jordan Love early. And when it meshed, nobody better. He was so good last year.
Yeah. And I think before we jump into some of these trades, I think with Josh Jacobs, he got the big contract extension. I think he's safe. They just took Marshawn Lloyd in the round 3. Mm-hmm. He had every injury you could think of in the book. So honestly, I don't know how Marshawn Lloyd bounces back to be the backup there. They did use Emmanuel Wilson a ton. That's why I'm not worried about Jacobs, because if they do bring in a Dylan Sampson or DJ Giddens or one of these change of pace guys in the 3rd or 4th round, Jacobs is still going to get every goal line touch. He's still going to get 250 plus carries between the 20. Like he's still a volume driven guy that's going to get his regardless. So I'm not worried if they do bring in another guy, but right away, like, Dad, this is the type of stuff I'm trying to do to get a Jacobs, to get a CMC, is take my Isaiah Pacheco's, take my Brian Robinsons, and turn a second on top. Yeah. Like who are you taking here? Jacobs in a 3rd or Pacheco some 4ths in a 2nd? Like
I'm selling. I mean, I'm glad so many people out there are Brian Robinson Jr., Isaiah Pacheco, and Tyrone Tracy truthers. And I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry. I'm getting rid of all
one of them might work out, but get rid of them all.
Because you're taking Isaiah. I would pay a late 26 first on top of Tyrone Tracy to get to Josh Jacobs. Because Tyrone Tracy, he's had some flash games, but man, he was fumbling like crazy, right? Isaiah Pacheco's coming off an injury. Brian Robinson.
It's like James Robinson and Antonio Gibson. Remember that? Like when they had those, you had to get rid of them, and people didn't, and then you lose all that value. They were valued as top 10 dynasty running backs at the time.
Ramondre Stevenson, Zach Charbonnet, J.K. Dobbins. The one that's surprising, Najee Harris. The one that's surprising is Tony Pollard's dropped all the way down to RB29 behind Charbonnet, Dobbins, and Benson. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, I'm trying to tear up off all those guys. You know what I mean? Or I'm trying to do a 2-for-2 where, I'll give up Tracy and Khalil Shakir, and I'll get Jerry Jeudy and, James Conner. Like, give me a younger, better wide receiver, and I'm going to tear down because I don't want anything to do with Robinson, Pacheco, or Tracy. I want to get to Josh Jacobs. Sorry, I got on my soapbox there because I keep trying to tell everybody, like, go get Josh Jacobs and quit playing, just like we said with wide receivers, quit playing with mediocre running backs. They're not getting you the points. There's no reason to invest.
Speaking of a mediocre running back, my next buy isn't pretty, but it's a guy that just gets it done. And Najee Harris is a free agent. I'm excited for it because I think the Steelers are horrible as an offensive team. The run game sucks. The scheme sucks. The O-line sucks.
Jalen Warren's
I don't think Najee Harris is like a stud at all. I think he's just like a mediocre workhorse, volume driven guy. Ben Johnson in Chicago is like sounding like Najee Harris is getting a contract extension there.
Okay.
And I could see them doing this. I could see them bringing in Najee as his David Montgomery, his hammer between the tackles, his guy to keep his elite dynamic player fresh. And then I could see him bringing in an Ashton Junty 12th and having him be that Gibbs plus. I could see him bringing in a Travion Henderson on early day 2 and being like that explosive 1-2 change of pace guy.
That's perfect.
I think that's what he's going to do. And I really think that Najee Harris, even if like he brings in Najee Harris and keeps Swift, who knows? Like he could do that too, but he's going to get his hammer. And Najee's like probably the clear best free agent running back right now. It's like the worst free agent running back class there is. So he's going to go somewhere and he's going to be like maybe the Chiefs bring him in and he's the hammer there, like that Kareem Hunt. He's going to be a guy that, I mean, he's had 4 straight seasons with 1,000 yards. He always scores like 6 to 8 touchdowns. He's not going to knock your socks off, but with the right landing spot, like Demont didn't knock your socks off. James Conner never knocked your socks off.
Solid.
They landed with those teams that elevated them as those goal line guys and those workhorse running backs. And they pounded the ball between the tackles. They got their 15 to 20 touches and they scored 10 plus touchdowns. I think that's what Najee Harris is going to do on his second contract. I could see the Chicago Bears really doing it there because they don't have that guy. It's Roschon Johnson right now. They need that guy. And whether it's draft a hammer and keep Swift or cut Swift and sign Najee and draft that dynamic player, I don't know what it's going to be, but all I know is Najee Harris is kind of screaming Ben Johnson vibes to me. So let's pull up a couple Najee trades real quick before I jump into your guy because it's like pennies on the dollar. Like you can get this guy for less than a second. Like right away. Look at these right away. Like Najee Harris or Ramondre and Christian Kirk. Like I would take Najee here. I think that's like Christian Kirk's nothing to me. And I think Najee's better than Ramondre Stevenson. Najee and Lockett or Xavier Legette. I'm taking Najee there. Najee, James Conner, 1-2 swap. They're literally the same person and Najee's cheaper. Like I'd take Najee there. It's close, but I think I would take Najee there. And then, like, look at some of these other ones. Like, you just see him and all these big packages. Like this one, James Conner, a second, Fields, Najee for a first. I'd honestly just take that package. To me, that's a depth-building package, and I'm getting a second back. It looks like he's just getting thrown in as like a throw-in in some of these. Like Demont, Chuba, and Najee for Keon and a first. Probably a mid to late first. I'd probably take Chuba over that straight up, and then I'm getting Demont and Najee for Keon Coleman. So he's a cheap guy you can get for like a mid to late second, probably a late second right now. And I think he's not pretty, but he's one of those buys that you buy into him. He lands with the right team, and he's a David Montgomery type riser. So give me your next guy.
I don't have any more because this is where we're at. 2025 running backs are going to change everything. But I want to talk a little bit more. Hold on. I want to talk a little bit about philosophy and how we work on this. Is, once you get in your startups, you get past RB19 with Kamara. We're selling Tracy. We're selling Robinson. We're selling Swift. Selling Charbonnet. Selling Ram. Selling J.K. Dobbins. Selling these guys in this area. What I want to talk about is the guys that are the number 2 that are towards the top that are going to have security. Trey Benson. Cardinals are not going to replace James Conner or Trey Benson. Trey Benson is someone that in a startup I have no problem taking, and I think he's become cheap now. So if I can get Trey Benson in a deal, I'm fine. Tajay Spears. I don't think the Titans are going to go out there with 2 running backs already in place. I think he's someone that's safe on that end. Jonathan Brooks, if you're rebuilding, sure, take a shot at him, get him thrown in. I wouldn't pay more than a third for Jonathan Brooks right now, but I think you can get him thrown in deals. We alluded to Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby and Zach Charbonnet are very similar type players. I think they're going to be guys that have value. Blake Corum. Like, this is really what you got to look at in the next level is, am I investing in a starter or do I want to just sit back and, the Cowboys are going to draft a running back, but Rico Dowdle was good enough to be a 1B somewhere and be an insurance level running back. Braylon Allen showed some signs. Isaac Garendo showed some flash. Tyler Algiers has been fantastic as the number 2. Those guys are safe. The guys that aren't, are the veterans that are starting to age out. Like Roschon Johnson to me is scary. A lot of people are trying to invest in him with this Ben Johnson news. I'm actively selling if I can get anything.
Yeah.
A lot of people are investing in Kamani Vidal because he's the RB2 for the Chargers. Guess what? The RB2 for the Chargers is J.K. Dobbins. People are starting to invest in Keaton Mitchell. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
He's a nice complementary piece, but they're going to draft an heir apparent to Derrick Henry and let Mitchell be the secondary.
Justice Hill. Yeah, they just paid Justice Hill too.
Exactly. So like, don't be that guy that invests in Zamir White, like of 2024, right? Like we all, or 2023, we're like, oh, he had a couple good games there. Let's invest in him. Just don't be that guy. Be fluid with the running back process. And then at the end of your drafts, that's when you throw in your Justice Hills and you throw in your, guys like Sincere McCormick, like he had like 2 or 3 good games, but you don't invest in those guys. You invest in elite level running backs or veteran running backs. The middle ground is what kills you. The farthest I go down is Chuba Hubbard. He's RB 15. I'm okay with him being my RB2, and I'm kind of rolling from there. So I think if you guys have not done this yet, you have to. You have to go back and watch the shows that we put together for the 2025 running back class. It has changed a little bit as far as the tiering. Brock did a phenomenal job editing, but dang, Snoog. I mean, it's going to really, if there are 15 solid running backs coming in, half the teams in the NFL are about to have things change quite a bit and evolve and move around with their depth charts.
Yeah, it really is about to get really crazy and interesting, especially for that position at running back with this class coming in. Even next year's class is looking like a good running back class. So that's why we got to kind of navigate this landscape right now before people start realizing, before people's landing spots get ruined, when you got to scam Cam Scatabo go into the Titans in round 2, and then so that's what I'm just trying to say is like those type of players, like with all it takes is a good combine. Like a good combine is what can elevate a running back's draft stock in any specific moment. So I think right now, before we jump into our last minute sleepers and fire them off together, I just think that everybody listening needs to just understand the landscape before you make trades. Understand what's about to happen. Start buying receivers now because it's so deep. We'll listen to our who to buy in this wide receiver landscape show that we just did about an hour ago. First, start building up that wide receiver core. Leave the running back spot a little bit light. Leave it a little bit empty. Then attack the position after the NFL draft, because then you're going to get discounts on players and you're going to get a ton of rookie value. And then you can go buy your Chase Brown if he doesn't get a guy, because people are pricing him right now like there's nobody coming. And same with James Cook. Like they're getting priced like no friend's going to come join them in that running back room until Quinshad Judkins is there in round 3 of the NFL draft. And then the Bengals are like, we really need a guy that can do it all. And they draft him, and then he ends up being the lead guy there. So that's what I'm just trying to say here. Give us some of your guys to finish this out.
I think James Cook has turned the corner. As much as you didn't like him in 20, I think he's safe. You know what I mean? They brought in Ray Davis, and people were starting to say he's going to take into it. Ty Johnson has looked phenomenal in that, receiving back role. I think Buffalo has so many other needs. I could see them taking like a Woody Marks. I could see them taking Brashard Smith. Like someone, because they're going to try to be electric and pass catching and I think they go there. But Snoog, I'm just invested in 2025, like even 3rd round running backs, like I just mentioned, like Woody Marks. I mean, like, sure, Ray Davis is capable. I'm kind of working that way. Maybe Javonte Williams finds a new home. Like we saw some flashes.
He was the guy I was just going to name. I could see him being a hammer in Ben Johnson's Bears offense too.
What if the Cowboys just like to be Cowboys and be dumb and then take Javonte Williams in free agency and pass the position again? They
do that. And then they go draft like a Dylan Sampson in round 4. And they're just like, that's our backfield. I could see him doing something like that too. Tajay Spears and Kendra Miller are 2 guys I'm buying just because I don't think I could see the Titans bringing in somebody, but I just think if they do bring someone in, it's going to be like an Amari in Hampton or an Ollie Gordon, some big hammer at the goal line. And I think it's going to hurt Tony Pollard, and Tajay Spears is still going to be able to be that dynamic 1-2 change of pace guy. And Kendra Miller, they just signed Kamara to another 2-year extension. He's still in rookie contract. Their run game's perfect. Like they don't need any upgrade there. They need a lot. They need wideouts. They need defense. They need a little bit of offensive line help. They need a quarterback, like tight end. They need so many other positions. So I think those 2 players are safe. And then obviously Javonte Williams, like you mentioned, him and Najee are the best free agent running backs in my opinion. And I think that they're just going to find homes and get decent contracts.
The other guy that I'm reluctantly saying bye, like not, you get him thrown in, is Jordan Mason. Like I was really impressed with what he did, before he got banged up. The first 4 games, he had 3 RB1 weeks. He's showed 28 carries, 20, 19, 24 involved in the passing game. I'm not saying he's going to be a starter somewhere, but I think he goes somewhere as a 1B. I think he goes to the right offense, and Jordan Mason has some upside. Right now, he's going as RB 49 in drafts with the equivalent of the 305. I'm okay with that. I'm holding on to my thirds, but I would definitely go there. What we're saying, guys, is don't overinvest in running backs unless you're getting elite. If you can go ahead and you can trade, guys that you draft picks plus to get up to a Gibbs, a Bijan, you do it. If you can trade draft picks plus to get up into that Chuba, Jacobs, McCaffrey, those kind of guys, you do that, and you just build around those wide receivers, fill in with the running backs. Don't get too invested because it's going to really shake up this landscape. So if you guys, we didn't even mention the word Patreon yet, but if you guys are not in there yet, Snoog's working on the draft guide. It looks fantastic, 50 players deep so far. Make sure you guys sign up for the VIP to get in that. You get all of our trade advice. You get all of our draft information. This is the place to be right now. Like a lot of you guys were like, I'll start once the season starts. Guess what? You're behind because we have added 115 people since the end of the season. Those guys are the guys that are getting the leg up. Those are the guys that are saying, you know what, Dad, Snoog, you guys help me 5X my money just like you guys do. We appreciate that. So join in now. Don't wait. It's the best kept secret on Twitter and on YouTube right now. So thanks for tuning in and enjoy the process.